Hi, this is Nikki Woods, and today I am talking to author, businessman, motivator, and much more, Kinja Dixon, about how to increase your net worth with words. The book is called Universal Talk Laws, and it explores professional and personal verbal communication. How are you?
I am doing great.
Good. So tell me a little bit about your background and sort of how we've gotten to this point before we start talking about your book and your purpose.
Well, I was born and raised in the New York area, and at 17 years of age, after some trouble that I was in, me and my mother had a long discussion, and she decided that the military was best for me. So I left, stayed with my aunt and uncle. They were long time in the Army. They prepared me for the U.S. Air Force, and that's where I did my time at Langley Air Force Base in Virginia. So my first entry out of New York was living on the barracks in Virginia. Got out the Air Force and was introduced into sales. The first job that I worked for out of the Air Force was a carpenter, and a friend of mine came to me and said, "Kinja, I just got a check." At the time, I was making about $600 a week as a carpenter, so I loved it. It was enjoyable working with my hands. That was what my expertise was from the aircraft mechanic that I was in the military. And I just got $1,000 on a week of work from talking on the phone, and I was like, "What do you mean? What is that?" And he said, "Telemarketing." And I said, okay. So I investigated, and I didn't quit my carpentry job at that point. I started out on like a weekend shift with this telemarketing firm called MCI WorldCom. And after about a month of that, I quit the carpentry bag and officially became a telemarketer. After 6 months of that, I was promoted to a manager. And for the first 4 years of my working life in the corporate world, from 20 to about 24 years of age, I was changing so many young people's lives. I was young at the time, too, but I was a supervisor managing 16 to 18 representatives on how to have the correct phone voice. And then in 24 years of age, I came into work. It was in February, and they said that in 3 months, the entire company is closing down. And I at that time, I had no idea of what a downsize was.
Right.
I was like, what is this? And I remember that feeling of remorse, and I thought my life was over. And then a friend of mine that worked at a vacation ownership location in the state in Williamsburg, Virginia, which was about 30 minutes away from where I worked, said, "Man, I know you thought you were doing good making, $70,000, $80,000 a year, but there are people in this opportunity making $30,000, $40,000 a month." And I was like, what? It's like, yeah, I know what. I said, what? They said the only thing is there's no salary, there's no base. It's like if you don't get a sale, you'll probably make $100 a week. But if you sell, you make a very big amount of money. So I'll be honest, I went to that direction motivated by money, and that is the career that over the last 9 years changed my life completely. First of all, because of the fact I transitioned from a downsizing company, what helped me with my ability to never work again now is all of those checks that I was receiving in that career, I was investing because I learned from my previous 4-year situation that nothing's promised. So my entire time of learning how to face-to-face sell and aggressively getting better over the last 9 years put me in a position where in 2013, I was honored with these 2 awards that are globally recognized in customer service and sales. One is the Stevie Award, and one is the American Resort Development Association Award. And I was the first person in the history of sales to win both of those awards in the same year. So that officially ranked me as the #1 sales executive in the world for 2013. And 3 days after the second award, I was driving in Virginia Beach in my Virginia home, on my way home, and I said, I need to write how I did this. And so the idea of a book popped into my mind. And once the idea popped, it was like infinite intelligence just poured the chapters, all of the information into my head. And within about 6 months, I had a complete manual of not only the steps of a communication in a persuasive way, but also the mental steps of how you need to define your purpose in life, how to define the mindset of how you need to live on a regular basis, deactivate thoughts that we've been drilled into our head from just living in the regular world. And it has just been a ride that has just been so powerful, because I had to make a decision in October after the book was complete, October 2013. Do I continue selling, making almost $800,000 a year, or do I quit that and go completely into my world, my book and my consulting firm? And I made a choice that I am just so happy that I've made, that some people were questioning at the time. So I retired from my sales career, and now I'm in about my 16th, 17th month in my new world. And it's just been a delight of helping so many people get the information that I've learned over some hard knocks to help them increase their not only financial wealth, but their emotional and personal wealth as well.
So, let's really drill this home, because, a lot of people retire, and, some of those people retire and have complete financial freedom, but not many, and none that I know of really, have been able to retire at the age of 30, 34. So, this is a little spectacular, I guess you could say. So tell me, because you said you were making about $800,000 a year and you walked away, and it's been about 17 months since you've done that. How hard was it for you to walk away from that salary, from that job, to pursue your passion?
Well, the benefit is that when I was 24, right during that downside, a book was given to me from a wealthy gentleman that I met in Williamsburg called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Mm-hmm. And learning the principles of how to invest and how to not spend my money on liabilities put me in a position where by 2007 I already had $1 million in my account. And that actually was a downfall, because 2 years later I ended up weighing 300 pounds. So I ended up living this life that I thought was associated with being, quote unquote, a millionaire. So I have been in a position where I've had a great amount of monetary income for years, but just being in that, the recognition that came with my company, which was excellent, Wyndham Vacation Ownership, and just the comfort level of knowing I was great at it, it was something that I got comfortable doing. Honestly, when I won those 2 awards and looked at the history of no one ever winning them, the self-development that I've been practicing since 2009 heavy, it led me to a position where the fear of leaving the security, quote unquote, that I had with that company was so small. It was not as hard as a decision that I thought it would be if I looked at me doing this years ago. So it was a gradual process. So at that point in October 2013, I actually taped that day. I didn't, and I'm actually going to have that in a video that I have coming up. But that day when I was in my office, you can see the fear in my eyes, because even though I had the best intentions, you're still about to leave a situation where you're making almost $1 million a year and you're doing very good at it. So at the end of the day, that drive for me to want to help more people and the no fear attitude, those mixtures is what combines me to do something that now I look back and it just made me a much stronger individual. And I learned so much about life and fear and overcoming different thoughts in your mind in that process as well.
Now, in Universal Talks Laws, which is the book that we're discussing today, you write, how you talk to yourself determines how you talk to others, and your results in life are a direct reflection of those conversations. Explain that to me, and explain what Universal Talk Laws is all about.
Well, this book is a process that has now turned into a curriculum. Tony Robbins, the company that officially did his virtual training, reached out to me, and I'm almost about 2 months from being a curriculum. It details not just, because I read the top 10 sales books of all times, and I've learned so much from them. Unfortunately, I read them after I wrote my book, kind of just to see where my book comes on with those books. I didn't read them during the time of when I probably should have read them. That might have helped me retire earlier. But when I read those books, most of those books were written by people in management firms. It was never the direct mindset of someone who was in the grit of selling daily. So this book is a little different. This was told to me from some people that are distributing in Jamaica. Never has anyone that has been in your shoes, first of all, stepped away from a situation at the height of their career, almost like Jordan, right at the height of his sixth ring, writing a book right at that time. But it details the mindset shift that I went through from being an employee working in the Air Force and being a carpenter and the remorse of leaving a company that downsized into the mindset of a person who has the no-fear attitude to start a foundation, an organization. So the mind shift is the most important piece. It details the mind, how it works, how I had to go back to some of the thoughts that I had when I was younger, some of the traits that I saw that I was taught from people doing the best that they could do. So it's no knocking on anything that I was around, but I had to grow by seeking who I was in myself. That's the first part of the book. But then it goes into the steps. I've calculated 5 steps of what a proper conversation is, not just in sales, but in any type of personal or business transaction. And those steps are the greeting, the discovery, company credibility, recommendation, and the close. And just to give you an example of what I mean with that, most people when they're talking to you, the first thing they want to talk about are either two steps. They want to recommend something to you based off what they think you want, or when you're getting sold something from a network marketer or some company trying to talk about their brand, they start with how good the company is. So they skip the greeting, they skip the questions, and they jump down to company credibility or recommendation phase. And so what I've done is detail the process worked over time and time again with all races, ages, genders, where you automatically, as you converse, you lower the tension that automatically comes with usual conversations. And this is for working in the home. I talk about in my training, the wife or the husband comes in, honey, let's do this. Without asking, without reading the wife, without asking any questions for the wife, just recommending and wondering where the tension comes in. So it's literally a universal talk law system that has helped me and now several thousand people across the country and the world get better results from their conversation.
So where do you recommend people start? I think in my business, I mean, a lot of people who are, they're employed at a company and they're looking to transition to entrepreneurship. But I think the major challenge that I find is that they don't know how to sell. They don't know how to promote themselves or their company, and they're uncomfortable with the quote-unquote close. Where do you recommend, other than reading your book, where do you recommend people start?
First step is you have to find out what you're literally passionate about. And when I say passion, I'm reading Oprah's book right now, What I Know for Sure. I just picked that book up 2 days ago. I'm not reading. I'm feeling like my mind is not growing. So I read at least 10 books a month. But she talked about something I talk about regularly. If what you are doing right now for a living, you could not do and not get paid for it, that is the first step to let you know that what you're doing is really monetary motivated and not your passion. So the first step, if someone wants to step into the world of seeking phenomenal growth in an entrepreneurship, you're going to live and breathe this business, is it needs to be something that you are doing and love doing, where if you weren't getting paid, you would still love doing it. And that's the biggest reason why so many people feel this inner conflict, because most of the moves that they've been making their entire life have not been from a passion motive. It's been from a monetary motive. So they're doing things just to get a check. And that is the first thing that anybody that wants to step into the realm of living your passion, you have to ask yourself, is what I'm doing or is what I'm about to do something that I love doing and would do it even if I was not getting paid? Now, of course, pay is very important for us to live, but that's the first step, is to live and love what you're doing. second step after realizing that you have your passion or you don't have your passion is to begin the step of mastery. And of course, we've all heard it, 10,000 hours of aggressive practice makes you a master in something. And that's something that these people that's been doing things for years need to really ask themselves, like, why are they at this job or at this entrepreneurship for 5, 6, 10 years, and there's still so many things I don't know? And the reason why is because 9 times out of 10, if you're not living in your passion, when you clock out, you're not even thinking about what you're doing during the day. So there's no way for us to get back into that Einstein and that Henry Ford way of building and changing the world if we don't live and breathe in mastery of what we say we want to do. We need to become masters. There's more people that are monetary focused instead of mastery focused. So first thing, realize what your passion is, and then start the process in living and finding out how it works, the industry, how other people that were excellent at it, how they did it, because those two missions will help you be able to surpass the storms that we deal with. Because at the end of the day, the company that I worked for, Wyndham, the one that I retired from, they had a downsizing about 4 years in the company. And the only reason why I didn't get closed down in that second situation is because my performance was so high that they actually transitioned me into another department because of my mastery, which held me out. So mastery and passion are two of the essential things that need to be focused on if you want to think about taking your job or your entrepreneurship to the next level.
I'm talking to Kinja Dixon about his new book, Universal Talk Laws, How to Increase Your Net Worth with Words. Another thing that you mentioned that I thought was interesting, you say that it's okay to be content with what you have, but you should never be content with who you are as a person. Can you explain more about that?
That is so powerful. That comes from that mindset of people that got to that point where they had that dream when they got out of college that, you know what, I want to get married, I want to have my house, and I want to have my car, and I want to have my picket fence. And once I get to that point, I have made it. And that is that mindset that is so synonymous with complacency. So I don't want anyone to feel that I don't want you to be happy about that house, that car, that wife, that husband that you got. But in order to continuously grow, because there's no limit in what our human potential can get to, we have to constantly self-examine the thoughts that we have within our emotions, the limitations that we have, what we're supposed to be. Growth is something that should become habitual. And as I'm talking to these schools across the country, I've talked to 60 schools, elementary, middle schools, high schools. One of the things I start off with is I ask them, what is your definition of success? And so many of them say to have this amount of money or to have this goal, and I let them know, and this directly goes into that saying, success is not a goal. Success is the journey toward the goal. So in my definition of success that I've gotten from some of the math studied, if you're not heading for a personal goal, you are no longer successful. So being content where you're to a position where you got to a certain point and now you're just coasting, you have the ability to get better, you're complacent and you are not in this world which you're able to give the world. It's almost like, what if Oprah, for instance, would have stopped with her show, because she was doing so well, and she didn't think about doing her network. She would have been robbing so many people of the gift that she has to this world. So I give you the example. We have 2 teachers. One teacher had the dream of becoming a teacher. They got to a teacher, and now they're just coasting in teaching. You have the other teacher. I'm trying to get one more person to pass this test. I'm trying to get 5 more students this year. One of those teachers is more successful than the other. So that statement has to do with never being content with how much you can grow as an individual.
That's awesome. The book is called Universal Talk Laws, How to Increase Your Net Worth with Words. His name is Kinja Dixon, and you can find out more about him on his website, kinjadixon.com, but he is also on social media. I think Kinja Dixon everywhere, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. I'm so busy working, helping. I honestly, I'm taking it whole days where I don't post as much of my world as I probably should, but my goal is to make a difference. So I'm out here in the community, helping and changing this world the best way I know how.
Well, we appreciate you, and we appreciate all that you do.
Thank you so very much, Ms. Woods.